The nation's education minister briefed the president on long-term initiatives to provide better education for young children. One solution is having this group begin elementary school 1 year earlier. The number of critically ill COVID-19 patients as well as related deaths reached the highest in 2 months. President Yoon chaired the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters meeting and called for a scientific and data-based approach to tackle the pandemic. Retail sales in South Korea dropped for 4 straight months for the first time in over 2 decades. Thankfully, industrial production was up. The parliament is on course to pass bills to cut taxes on fuel and business meals. Hello, we'll be wrapping up the week well. I'm Daniel Che. Welcome to our newscast. Let's begin with the top story at this hour. South Korea's newly appointed education minister briefed the president on long-term initiatives. Park Sun-ho explained lowering the age for starting elementary school by 1 year could help in achieving key goals. Kim Bo-kyung starts us off.
Beefing up its role where needed and taking the initiative in nurturing professionals in high tech. That's what the new education minister stressed when she briefed President Yoon Suk-yeol on the ministry's long-term education reform plans under the new government. Among 5 goals the ministry underlined was providing better education to the youngest children. One way would be to have children go to elementary school 1 year earlier at age 5 in international age instead of 6.
The government is taking more proactive steps to eliminate any educational gaps from the time of birth so that all children can grow up free of discrimination and inequality. For that, we will start discussions on unifying kindergarten and daycare centers to strengthen education for young children and lowering the age for elementary school by 1 year.
With President Yoon having asked that it be implemented quickly, the change would start as early as 2025. It would be the first change in 76 years since age 6 was established by the Education Act in 1949. Also, the current 2-track education system for kindergarten and daycare would be unified starting 2024. Currently, they are under different ministries, kindergarten under education and daycare under health, which causes discrepancies in education ranging from teacher qualifications to funding. The ministry also aims to expand the talent pool in the digital sector. Park said specific details will come out next month. Just last week, the government announced measures to boost training for talent in the semiconductor industry.
For this, the ministry will newly create a new strategic meeting for nurturing talent led by the president to achieve with results through active discussions between industry, educational organizations, and the government.
President Yoon asked the education ministry to do more to provide fair education opportunities to all children and underlined the need to review the education system overall. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
Turning to Friday's Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters meeting, President Yoon called for a scientific and data-based approach to bring down the daily virus tally. This comes as a number of severe COVID-19 cases and deaths reached the highest level in 2 months. Kim Soon-ho brings the updates.
COVID-19 is once again growing as a health concern in South Korea. So for the first time since taking office, President Yoon Suk-yeol on Friday chaired the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters meeting.
재유행이 예상보다 빠르게 진행되고 있습니다. 일상 회복의 기조를 유지하면서도 위중증과 사망을 최소화하는 것이 이번 정부 방역 의료 대응의 목표입니다.
President Yoon stressed a scientific and data-based approach to COVID-19.
7월 민간 전문가로 구성된 국가 감염병 위기 대응 자문위원회를 설치했습니다. 코로나 대응의 의사결정 거버넌스가 전문가들에 의해서 이루어지고 과학적 데이터와 근거에 기반한다는 원칙 아래 방역에 한치의 빈틈이 없도록 철저히 준비하고 대응해야 합니다.
He also asked everyone to stick to the basic COVID-19 prevention guidelines. On the day of the meeting, the numbers of critically ill and COVID-19 related deaths logged their highest in 2 months. South Korea on Friday reported 234 patients in severe condition and 35 deaths. A total of 85,320 new cases were reported on Friday. But health authorities said that COVID numbers have not yet peaked. They see that happening in a week or two. Experts see the peak in the daily tally to stay below 200,000, which they say is still manageable.
We expect to be able to respond with our current disease prevention measures and medical capacity without the need for one-size-fits-all social distancing measures.
The Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasure Headquarters also said Friday that they're upping their medical response by bringing in more COVID-19 oral pills. They said that they will finish buying enough doses for around 942,000 people by next week. Around 2,000 more pharmacies will have them in stock. Also from the 8th of next month, health officials will start administering Evusheld, which is the protection drug against COVID-19 for immunocompromised patients. Kim Soon-ho, Arirang News.
South Korea will launch a new police oversight bureau under the Interior Ministry next week. Senior Superintendent General Kim Soon-ho is nominated to lead the team. He is not a graduate of the Korean National Police University, which would normally be among the qualifications for a candidate taking on such a role. The key task for Kim will be overseeing reforms to the current police personnel system. He'll also be maintaining checks and balances on the police, with its investigative powers having been transferred from the prosecution. The incoming bureau chief currently heads the task force preparing for the parliamentary confirmation hearing of the National Police Agency Commissioner nominee Yoon Hee-geun. With inflation at an historic high, the National Assembly is on course to help cut taxes on fuel and business meals. A special parliamentary committee on improving people's livelihoods passed a bill enabling the government to cut fuel taxes by as much as 50% if necessary until 2024. That's up from the current limit of 30%. The committee also approved a bill expanding tax exemptions for workers paying for business meals. Currently up to 100,000 won, or about $80 of an employee's monthly pay, is tax exempt as a meal allowance, but that will be doubled. This measure, once approved, will take effect next year. The bills will be put to a final vote at Tuesday's plenary session after they're approved by the Legislative Committee. Staying here in the nation, retail sales dropped in June due to rising prices and higher interest rates. It's the first time in 24 years the index dipped for 4 consecutive months. In contrast, industrial production was up. Lee Hyun helps us look beyond the digits.
People in South Korea spent less money in June. Data from Statistics Korea on Friday shows that retail sales dropped for the 4th consecutive month for the first time in 24 years. The index for the country's retail sales, a barometer for consumer demand, stood at 118.3 for June, down 0.9% from the previous month. The agency attributed the fall to rising consumer prices and interest rate hikes. Lower demand for outdoor activities due to scorching weather and heavy rain were also mentioned as contributing factors. Spending in related areas like outdoor sport activities saw a drop of 0.9% last month. The agency added, however, that consumer spending is seeing an overall recovery.
Although retail sales of goods like cars, clothes, and food saw a decrease, spending in accommodation and restaurants are seeing strong growth this quarter, so we are considering this as a recovery in consumer spending.
South Korea's industrial production rose 0.6% on month to 117.9. It's the second consecutive month that output has seen a rise. Last month's increase was largely due to greater production in the manufacturing industry, including semiconductors and cars. In terms of semiconductors, East chip supply issues drove the increase to 4.2% on month. Meanwhile, investment in equipment rose 4.1% thanks to improving semiconductor equipment supply chain conditions. But one expert says despite rises in industrial production and investment, with sluggish domestic spending, the country's growth will mainly be driven by exports.
We seem to be heading in the future where production may be doing well, but domestic consumption does not. So it points to an economy which is still dependent on exports.
The expert added that the country could see more optimism based on an expected fall in oil prices, which will lead to eased inflation for the second half of this year. 이래현, Arirang News.
The U.S. is technically in a recession. GDP numbers show negative growth for the second straight quarter. However, the White House emphasized that's not the case. With inflation high, consumer spending is impacted as well. Here's Jung with a breakdown of the figures.
The United States economy shrank again for a second consecutive quarter, beating the drum of recession. The U.S. Commerce Department on Thursday reported the advanced estimate that the country's gross domestic product for the April to June period fell at an annualized rate of 0.9%. The contraction follows a 1.6% decline in the first 3 months of this year. Despite inflation running at rates unseen in 4 decades, consumer spending, which accounts for some 70% of economic activity in the U.S., increased 1% in the second quarter. But the figure was less than the 1.8% growth in the first quarter. Also, the biggest drag on the GDP was a fall in business inventories, which have driven a 2 percentage point cut in the headline figure. Back-to-back quarterly contractions fueled concerns that the United States could be entering a recession or is signaling that one already had begun. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, during a news conference on Thursday, did not rule out a possible recession, but she refused to concede that a recession is underway.
Most economists and most Americans have a similar definition of recession. Substantial job losses and mass layoffs, businesses shutting down, private sector activities slowing considerably, family budgets under immense strain, in sum, a broad-based weakening of our economy. That is not what we're seeing right now when you look at the economy. Job creation is continuing. Household finances remain strong. Consumers are spending and businesses are growing.
Yellen also noted the administration's achievements during the last 18 months, but warned of several risks on the horizon.
While our economy has been resilient in the face of numerous shocks over the past 2 years, I should also stress that there are numerous risks on the horizon, many of them global, that we remain highly attuned to. They include the outcome of the war in Ukraine, COVID lockdowns in China, and pandemic-related supply chain snarls.
Jung, Arirang News.
South Korea's tech giant showed solid performances in Q2. Record high sales were notched by LG Electronics, Samsung SDI, and SK Innovation. Shin Ha-young provides a deeper analysis.
South Korea's tech companies posted strong performances in the second quarter. LG Electronics on Friday posted its highest ever Q2 sales at around 19.5 trillion Korean won or $15 billion, up about 15% from the same quarter last year. That came in a little higher than market expectations thanks to LG's growing auto parts business and home appliance. Operating profit, however, dropped 12% on year to 792 billion Korean won, or about $690 million, which was slightly below expectations. A company official says this was caused by the rising cost of logistics and raw materials. Despite the fall, both sales and operating profit rose to all-time highs for the first half of the year. Meanwhile, at electric vehicle battery maker Samsung SDI, all-time high sales and operating profits. Sales in Q2 amounted to 4.7 trillion Korean won, or about $3.6 billion, up about 42% on year. Operating profit jumped more than 45% to 429 billion Korean won, or about $330 million. The rise was mainly on growth in its batteries and materials businesses. Battery maker SK Innovation saw a significant improvement with sales amounting to almost 20 trillion Korean won, or some $15.3 billion, an on-year increase of 77%. Its operating profit jumped over 300% to 2.3 trillion won, or $1.8 billion. The company's overall revenue was its highest for any quarter so far thanks to the solid sales of petroleum products and batteries for electric vehicles. 신하영, Arirang News.
America remains committed to the defense of South Korea. That's coming from the U.S. State Department after Kim Jong-un warned of firm action against Seoul in case of preemptive strikes. The regime also claims to be fully prepared for any military confrontation with Washington. Min Suk-hyun has the latest.
A day after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un issued threats against the U.S. and South Korea, the U.S. State Department said Pyongyang would not be surprised to hear the same message from Washington. In fact, Ned Price, the State Department spokesperson, said Kim's latest comments were no different from what the U.S. has heard before.
The comments we've heard in recent hours are not categorically different from what we've heard from the DPRK regime over the course of recent months and recent years, unfortunately. We're not going to respond to them. I think it is fair to say that the DPRK also won't be surprised to hear the same message from us.
On Wednesday, Kim Jong-un warned South Korea that its government and military would be annihilated if it were to make any dangerous attempt. And to Washington, Kim said the regime was fully prepared for any military confrontation. At Thursday's press briefing, Ned Price stressed that the U.S. has a vital interest in deterring North Korea and, above all, keeping the American people and its allies safe from any threat to international peace and security. The spokesperson stressed that the U.S. remains committed to the defense of South Korea.
And to that end, we continue to consult closely with Japan, with the ROK, and with partners throughout the broader Indo-Pacific region and beyond.
At the same time, Price also reiterated Washington's commitment to engage in dialogue with North Korea, saying that the U.S. has no hostile intent toward the regime. But he said the U.S. has not heard a substantive response from the North. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General has also raised concerns over North Korea's latest comments. A spokesperson for the Secretary General said the UN is against all rhetoric involving the use of deadly weapons, calling for peaceful denuclearization efforts on the Korean peninsula. Min Suk-hyun, Arirang News.
Seoul and Washington agreed to strengthen cooperation on cybersecurity. The decision came following talks between South Korea's National Security Advisor Kim Soon-ho and U.S. Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber and Emerging Technology Ann Neuberger. The two sides agreed to stay in active communication and to strengthen cooperation and information sharing and response capabilities to prevent and combat cyber sabotage. According to Seoul's top office, the meeting with Neuberger was held earlier this week at Washington's request. South Korea's foreign ministry turned in a written argument to the Supreme Court on wartime forced labor of Korean citizens by Japan's Mitsubishi Heavy Industries. It's seen as part of diplomatic efforts to resolve the issue. This is the first time since 2016 the ministry has submitted a written argument to the Supreme Court on the matter. In 2018, South Korea's Supreme Court ordered the Japanese company to pay compensation to the plaintiffs and ordered it to sell 2 patent rights, but the company refused and filed an appeal to the court again. South Korea's Kiev-21 successfully completed its test flight on Friday. The second session was similar to the first one 10 days ago, but the aircraft flew with its landing gear raised. According to a military source, the flight lasted for 39 minutes, 6 minutes longer than the first. The speed was similar to 440 kilometers per hour, but at 10,000 feet, the altitude was lower. For the next 4 years, the domestically developed fighter jet will be put through 2,200 more test flights to check its safety before manufacturing can begin. Elsewhere around the world, Russia is attacking Ukraine's capital again. It's also gaining ground in the eastern Donbas region, where the people are living in fear of continuous bombing. But Ukrainian forces are fighting back and have stepped up efforts to retake areas occupied by Moscow. Peunji reports.
Russian forces carried out missile strikes on Ukraine's capital city of Kiev on Thursday local time, marking the first attacks in the region in more than 50 days. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said in his usual nightly video address on Thursday that in any given day, it's clear that no one in the world invests more in terrorism than Russia.
In only the first half of this day, and only in Kiev, there were 4 air alarms. The Russian army launched missile attacks on the Kiev region.
Also, Russia is slowly gaining ground in Ukraine's eastern Donbas region. The key cities of Soledar and Bakhmut are being heavily shelled, and residents are living in fear.
What can I tell you? How can we live here when they're shelling on our heads? Can you sleep? There are children here, small children.
With shells and rockets landing in the region every day, local schools lie in ruins.
They should have given all the territory in the beginning. They could have avoided many victims. You can't fight with that side.
Meanwhile, Ukraine has stepped up its efforts to retake Russian-controlled regions in the south by trying to bomb and isolate Russian troops in hard-to-resupply areas. The Ukrainian military claimed Thursday local time that its planes struck 5 Russian strongholds around Kherson and another nearby city. Ukraine said it has retaken some small settlements on the region's northern edge in recent weeks, as it tries to push back Russian forces. 배은지, Arirang News.
Moving on to other stories now, extraordinary attorney Wu is becoming a worldwide sensation, listed third on FlixPatrol's daily global chart. The streaming analytics company ranks TV programs by aggregating the Netflix top 10 charts. As of Thursday, the 16-part South Korean series was the most popular in 20 countries and ranked just second in 11 nations. Just a month after it began airing, the show placed 9th in the U.S. The legal drama revolves around Woo Young-woo, a bubbly and brilliant rookie lawyer who is on the autism spectrum. Even without any hype before the show launched, stellar acting and incredible chemistry captivated viewers and shot up the cast into a new stratosphere. It's pacey and quirky, but packed with exposition-free scenes and lines that tug at heartstrings. A breath of fresh air for viewers who grew weary of recent formulaic shows with more sizzle than steak. South Korea and Argentina celebrate 60 years of diplomatic ties. To mark the occasion, a special exhibition displaying the works of an Argentinian artist kicked off in Seoul. Song Yoo-jin provides a sneak peek.
Exciting news for fans of contemporary art. There'll be a special exhibition on Nat'l Island, located in the capital Seoul, introducing the work of the world-renowned contemporary artist Leandro Ehrlich from Argentina. But there's something unique about this exhibition in particular.
We've been planning immersive exhibitions where people not merely stand in front of the work to look at it, but throw themselves into the work and become a part of it. And Ehrlich's work is just that.
A total of 18 pieces are on display. They include 3 big-scale installations, video art, and photos that documented the artist's previous work.
But the highlight of the exhibition is Ehrlich's most famous work, the bâtiment. It's a unique structure that provides visitors a chance to defy gravity without leaving the ground.
Bâtiment means building in French. The artwork itself consists of a facade that resembles a 4-story building and a huge mirror, which gives people a view as if they're hanging from or crawling on the building. It's been loved the world over after being created in 2004 and exhibited in over 20 countries. But it's actually the project's first time in Korea, and there's something even more special about it.
Actually, this piece in Korea is the original one. It's the one that was created for the first time in Paris. In this case, I felt that it would be a better experience to bring something from its original form, rather to make an adaptation to the local context.
And visitors are loving the experience.
As my kids are on summer vacation, I wanted to find a fun exhibition where they could not only look at the work, but also take part in it.
I felt like Spider-Man when I saw myself crawling on the building through the mirror.
I saw this exhibition on social media saying that it makes you feel like you are traveling abroad, and it really feels like it.
The exhibition runs until December 28th. Those who wish to take a look around can buy tickets online. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Sweltering conditions will continue across inland regions this weekend. More scorching temperatures are in store for Seoul tomorrow, with highs reaching 35 degrees Celsius. On Sunday, readings will cool down a bit, but daytime highs will be over the 30-degree mark. Meanwhile, the fifth typhoon of the season, Songda, is currently heading towards the north from waters off Okinawa, Japan. Tomorrow, Songda will likely reach near the southern coast of Jeju Island and will eventually head towards Shanghai, China. Although South Korea will not be under the direct influence, the south coast and Jeju Island will be battered by some heavy rain. Mountainous regions of Jeju Island will see heavy downpours of 300 millimeters. The rest of the island can expect 150, and the south coast will see about 80 millimeters. Gusty winds will also follow, so please secure any items that could get blown away. Morning lows in Seoul will be starting off at 27 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul and Chungcheon will reach 35. Daegu and Gyeongju will be making it to 32 degrees. The capital region will see frequent showers early next week. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all from us. As always, thank you for watching.